Obstagoon is back, and this time he's brought Scoop Up Nets. Welcome back, everyone, to more from the Sableyes. I'm Mitch, and today we're going to be taking a look at Galarian Obstagoon. This deck saw a bit of success early on in the initial Sword and Shield format, but dropped away a little bit. Now it is back and ready to take on the meta. There are a lot of good matchups that this deck definitely can deal with, and the only new threat in this format, Dragapult, is weak to Dark. So could Obstagoon be the play? Potentially. But we will check out a list that did well in Day 2 of Limitless 3 and show you exactly how the deck is designed to work. Obviously, having multiple copies of Obstagoon in an Obstagoon list is probably not a bad idea. We have quite a thick Obstagoon line, but I'll tell you what the card does first. 160 HP Dark Pokemon with Untamed Shout. When we play this Pokemon from our hand into the field of play, we place 3 damage counters on one of our opponent's Pokemon. This can be really good to set up knockouts for some of our other Pokemon, including Yveltal-GX, but it can also make the maths a little bit nicer for our attack, which is going to be Obstruct for a Dark and for a for Dark and a Colorless. Well, I'm trying to desperately say the name of Colorless Energy there. I really struggled with it. For a Dark and a Colorless, we can do 90 damage, and if our opponent's active Pokemon is a basic, they will not be able to damage our Obstagoon at all next turn. So it's really good in that we can stop some of the big hitters in the format from being able to attack us. Now, when we think about it, let's go and have a think about all of the good decks that come up at the moment. We've got Poekmon, all basic Pokemon. We've got 80 Bizartion, at the moment, all basic Pokemon. Babybel, yep, all basic Pokemon. And the only deck that doesn't play basic Pokemon as their attacker, Dragapult VMAX, is it's a stage 1, just like this Obstagoon's a stage 2, so it's going to take a turn for them to get going. Obstagoon has 160 HP, so it's going to survive a hit, and it's going to do 180 damage to a Dragapult whilst stopping it from being able to attack with anything else. So this is really strong. You would think that the Dragapult matchup wouldn't be too bad. We've got a couple of other cards to go into that matchup with as well. So if our 4-2-3 line of Obstagoon doesn't work, we can potentially attack with Sableye V with Crazy Claws, 10 plus 60 for every damage counter on our opponent's Pokemon. If we place some damage counters down onto a Dragapult VMAX, we're probably going to be able to take a knockout. I think the number is 4 or 5. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head, but Sableye V is a potential attacker. And worst case scenario, if we can't do that, we'll just take a knockout with Doomcount-GX on Yveltal. Yveltal-GX can knock out any Pokemon in the game with 4 damage counters on it. And I don't know if you've done the maths, but Zigzagoon does 10 damage when it's placed into the field of play, and Obstagoon does 3. So that's 4. Doomcount will take the knockout. The list itself is built around trying to get those Obstagoon into play as quickly and as reliably as possible. We've got Jirachi to support, we've got Rare Candy, things like Lillie's Pokédoll so that our opponent doesn't take prizes early, and of course 4 copies of Scoop Up Net, which is really strong. One of the win conditions of this deck is getting a single Obstagoon powered and attacking, and if that happens, we can usually win games, especially against decks like Poekmon and 80 Bizartion, which at present don't play cards to counter Obstagoon. Scoop Up Net means that we can afford to play down some extra Pokemon as backups whilst we're powering an Obstagoon up, and then we can remove them from the field of play so that even if our opponent does find a Gust, they aren't going to be able to use it. So we can potentially set up that win condition there. The supporter line for this deck is definitely very interesting. We've gone for a 4 count of Marnie. That's a card that lots of people are playing in a 4 count at the moment. We also have 4 copies of Erika's Hospitality, and this one's super interesting. The list that we've seen on Limitless didn't play the research, instead playing Erika's, and I think that's reasonable enough because lots of the cards that you're going to be able to play in this deck are either going to be cards that can be automatically played down, or they're going to be cards that remove cards from your hand. So Erika is going to be live a lot of the time, and you can very easily draw between 7 and 8 cards with this very simply. Like, it's not difficult to do. Your opponent has 5 cards on the field of play. You can have 5 Pokemon in the can't speak at the moment. I'm really struggling. It's just about tea time. I probably should eat something. Anyway, let's start that one again. your opponent probably has 5 Pokemon on the bench, because at the moment, people are putting lots and lots of Pokemon down. You probably have 2 or 3, that is 8 cards, and Erika is going to get you that pretty easily. So, very, very solid there. We also have 3 copies of Rosa. Rosa is super, super good as well, because it's going to allow you to search out for an item, an energy, and a Pokemon, and sometimes all you need is those 3 things. We got a Galarian Obstagoon, a Rare Candy, and a Dark Energy, and we could be attacking with Obstruct for game. So Rosa, a very, very strong supporter there. This list is super good. I couldn't talk through it without stumbling, but we got there eventually. What we'll do is we'll take this one onto the ladder, and we'll see how we go. Hopefully we run into those Pikarom decks, or maybe even ADP stations, so we can show off exactly how Obstruct works in action. We'll see if we can get our Obstruct going quickly. This deck's actually a really fun one to ladder with, because at the moment not many people are expecting it. So you can definitely get yourself a few wins if you are lucky. We've lost a coin flip, which is kind of unfortunate. We'd like to go first so we can get our Obstructs going quickly. This hand is like weirdly good but bad. We've got a Zigzagoon, a Rare Candy, and an Obstagoon, and it looks like our opponent's playing Zacian here. So depending on what our opponent's partner of choice is, if it's ADP, we might have some turns. If it's not, we might struggle a little bit. There's a metal attachment to the Zacian, so that's good. And an Intrepid Sword. Alright, so if they get an energy here, they didn't. I was about to say, if they got an energy here, we would have been desperately searching for a Pokemon. Oh, now this is really interesting. I think I have to play the Marnie. I mean, there's a party here that wants to sit on that hand because it is so good, but I don't think we can realistically afford to do anything other than play it. What we'll do is we'll chuck both of these Zigzagoons down just in case something goes wrong, and then we'll just pass. We'll leave the energy in the active. If our opponent knocks out our Zigzagoon, then whatever, that's what happens. You'd think they'd be trying to go for their GX attack, whether they're playing ADP or Luca Metal. You would think that that would be their go-to here. Chaos Swamp and another Zigzagoon and another energy. Okay, a big charm. Right, what do we got here? Just an Intrepid Sword. So maybe our opponent maybe just playing straight Zacian here. We haven't seen anything to prove otherwise. I'll attach an energy to this Zigzagoon, and then on Marnie again, we'll draw in some extra cards. And that's actually really strong, so I'm happy with this. We've got a Jirachi and a switch. We can switch into the Jirachi and then use Stellar Wish and try and find ourselves some cards. I like the Pokédoll, actually. We've got Escape Board in hand and the Rosa, and even if our opponent gets an energy attachment, if they choose to knock out the Pokédoll, we can still play Rosa. So I think the best thing to do here, rather than giving up a prize, we can just play down the Lillie's Pokédoll, attach the Escape Board, and retreat into it. Worst case scenario, we can just move the Pokédoll to the bottom of the deck next turn and use Jirachi to search for a supporter, hopefully. But best case scenario, they knock out our Pokédoll, we hit the Rosa, and then suddenly we are obstructing every turn from now until the end of the game. Hopefully, fingers crossed. We're seeing a Cherish Ball here, so this is ADP. Wow, our opponent got a really, really slow start there. That's horrifically bad. I don't think that they'd be in too much of a better position now. They might have been able to GX this turn if they had that ADP earlier. But, you know, they could still GX. Lots of these decks are playing Energy Switch. So it's just a water attachment, a switch, and an Energy Switch, and they are GXing. That Tool Scrap is going to be annoying. Getting rid of our Jirachi here, not being able to Escape Board anymore is a bit of a pain. But that's okay. We can just go straight into the Zigzagoon if this Pokédoll does get knocked out. I think that probably is the best case scenario at the moment. See the Quick Ball from our opponent. They're going to grab Galarian Meowth, and this is quite frustrating because if they have Galarian Berserker, they actually will have a Stage 1 Pokemon they could attack with. It just depends on whether or not they have the foresight to power it up. We've got the Zigzagoon, so we're just going to go straight into Obstagoon here. Rosa will find an Obstagoon. We'll grab ourselves a Rare Candy. And, I've just gone past Rare Candy. I'll come back to that later. We'll grab the Dark Energy as well and a Rare Candy. We'll grab those out. Our hand is atrocious, but at least we have a Obstagoon in play. Then we have to decide where these 30 damage counters go. I think we just put them on the active. Does it ever really matter? It's 2200. It's 250. So now I mean, if I get another Obstagoon, I'll be able to pop that onto the active and then maybe obstruct into it for knockout. That big charm is just making this number very frustrating. If we were able to just obstruct one more time into it to take the 2 prizes, that would be great, but it's not going to happen here. Got the Escape Board and a switch into Jirachi. Obviously looking for a supporter here. The Dedenne won't cut it because they've got all those Pokemon on the bench. Oh, and a boss's orders. That's actually quite frustrating, but I mean, it's not going to stop us, realistically. They're going to take a prize, though, which I don't like. They're probably going to take a prize on the Zigzagoon with energy, I'd imagine. Could potentially have gone for the Jirachi, but I think this is probably the safer play. But the funny thing is that I can still maybe get myself a knockout this turn. I do need to find another Obstagoon, though, so that's going to be quite tough to do. We'll just move the Obstagoon back into the active. We'll just keep obstructing. Well, we've got a quick ball here. There's nothing really that we could realistically quick ball, though. There's not a huge amount in the deck, so we'll just obstruct, and that will put our opponent on 230 damage. If we're able to get a couple of Zigzagoon chips onto it, we'll be able to take a knockout, or one Obstagoon ought to do the job. Jirachi's back in now, and they'll be Stellar Wishing for a supporter again, you'd think. They're actually going to go for Evolution Roar here, which is a fair call. Do they not have their Galarian Berserker in the deck? That seems like a pretty good stroke of luck for us, but they have found research off of the Jirachi, so they will be drawing a fresh hand of 7 cards, but we are at least 1 turn away from taking that knockout on the Zacian V with all of that damage on it. Best case scenario, we can potentially maybe take a knockout with a Obstagoon, but with an Obstagoon Snipe, sorry, but at this stage I'm a little bit concerned. Looks like they're actually just going to go for the Intrepid Sword here, choosing not to go for the ADP. Maybe they just couldn't do it this turn. Well, that's okay, because we can just evolve this Zigzagoon into Linoone. I don't have a problem with doing that, and I guess we just attack with Obstruct. Like, I'll hold on to the energy. You never know when you might need it. And we'll take a prize. And that's actually really strong for us, because that means now we've got 2 prizes on the Zacian. That's just 1 card away. Obstagoon off the top will give us that Zacian knockout. And then we just target down the ADP, and we can potentially win ourselves the game with that particular prize mapping. The last thing we want to do is kind of work around like multiple different knockouts, and it's just going to be awkward. We want to take 2 prizes on the Zacian on the bench and then 1 more knockout, and that would be great. Looks like we're seeing an energy switch or 2 from our opponent. We're just going to move those onto the ADP. The question is, are they going to be able to find a switch? If they can find switch and get into their Gust here for next turn after they GX, then they might be able to deal a little bit of damage to us, but they've got 5 prizes to take, and as long as this Obstagoon in the active remains in the active with energy, they're going to find it really, really tough to take a knockout. They're actually going to give us the ADP here, so I'm going to get 90 free damage onto that ADP. We've got an energy. I think we're going to actually get rid of that energy with the quick ball. We could have used the energy to attach to the Linoone, but I don't think we realistically need to. We'll pop a little Zigzagoon down here. We'll chuck it onto that Zacian on the bench. Hopefully we can find 1 more. We'll save the stamp for later. We've got a quick ball here, and we've got ourselves an Obstagoon, so we can grab that Obstagoon. I don't actually think we need to put another Zigzagoon down. I shouldn't have played this Zigzagoon. We're just going to kill it with an Obstagoon. That was a massive error. Probably shouldn't have done that. I should have left that Zigzagoon in the hand, but that's okay. We've got a Scoop Up Net here, so we can just pick that Jirachi up. So now we're in the same position we were in before anyway, so it's not a problem. We missed energy, which is unfortunate, but we have still got 2 on the active, so we will obstruct for 90, and now we are 3 prizes away from game. That's 2 more obstructs onto this ADP, and we have Great Catcher in hand as well, as long as we can hold on to it, or we can't. I'm going to get Reset Stamped, and fair enough too. I was too busy talking about how I had a good card in my hand, so probably shouldn't have done that. And the boss's orders coming out here. You'd think they're going to take the knockout on the Obstagoon, so they will go for the ultimate ray here. 2 prizes on the Obstagoon, and that is probably going to be that. We're going to attack with Obstruct again. I don't think that there's anything else that we realistically need to do. Our opponent's got 4 cards in hand as well, so oh, look at this. We've got a Scoop Up now. We can just pick up this Zigzagoon now. Don't need to play anything else down. They can't Gust. We're just going to Obstruct. What are they going to do about that? There's nothing realistically that they could do. They might have got the Galarian Berserker off of the prizes, but I think we're actually in a position now where if we just wait it out, our opponent's got realistically nothing to do. They're acro-biking, so yeah, they've got one card left in deck now. They're getting rid of the metal patch, so yeah, I think this is going to be a win. We've managed to get down to that one Obstagoon. We've got multiple prizes already taken. We're I think we're 2 hits away from that whatchamacallit on the bench. ADP. I think we just keep obstructing. There's nothing else that we really realistically have to do here. Next turn they're going to lose the game because they've got no cards to draw. So yeah, seems like a pretty solid one. It's almost uninspiring, almost anticlimactic, but victory it is. I like it. That's all I can say. It's pretty good. Like, Obstagoon is great, especially in a format like this where everyone is trying their best to accelerate their win conditions against the other big tag team and VMAX decks. Obstagoon can come in. It's one of those decks that if you forget about it, it can easily catch up with you. You got to be careful though, because people obviously, having seen it, are going to be countering it now, so make sure that you're not going into a tournament expecting to win every time with this deck, but you definitely can get some solid results with it, so it is more than worth testing. Thank you everyone for coming along to this particular video. This one was selected by our Twitter viewers, or Twitter supporters, whatever you want to call them, followers, on our poll. We put up a poll every couple of days to see what kind of decks that you want to see us do next, and Obstagoon won, so we may as well give it a go here. We've got another couple of videos coming up, and then there will be another poll, so follow us on Twitter and on Facebook at the Sableyes_YT to be involved in that. Otherwise, consider subscribing, click the button that's just here. Over here are some videos that YouTube thinks you'll like, as well as a playlist for more of our Rebel Clash deck profiles. Thank you everyone for coming along, and we'll see you all next time for more from the Sableyes. Bye.